reading, or can y'all keep track of the list yourselves?
I think that's it. Everyone, welcome to Whenever We Feel Like It. My name is Michelle Taransky, and I've been lucky enough to be a member of the Kelly Writers House community for about 12 years. This is the third We All Feel Like It reading that this series is hosting. So I'm really excited to introduce you to these 10 undergraduate poets who I have been lucky to read and write and learn with, and you are about to be in a room with them. Behind me, you will recognize perhaps the beloved Arts Cafe with a wonderful Whenever We Feel Like It sign made by a former Writers House staffer. So I just want to welcome everyone to the Writers House. And if you're not signed up for our listserv, our email list, please do. Tomorrow night, Penn Professor Bob Perlman will be reading from his new collection. So this should be a great way to get you really ready and into the kinds of poetry communities we have at Penn. So 10 undergraduates are going to read their work in alphabetical order. You on the event page can click a link and check out their bios and learn a little bit more about them. But again, thank you all for coming, and I'm really excited to present We All Feel Like It. And our first reader is Jamie Albrecht.
What's up? I'm Jamie. This is an excerpt from my thesis called A Letter, and it's the second half called What Have You. Climax is a question. Let's take things slow. Or do you feel good? Are you feeling enough? When you fuck, do you dedicate like George or come like Connor, coming forward not even with an optimistic and clunky gift? Fortunately, Connor rarely had questions. Just as rare would it be that his cum coated me. Fortunately, I was the only one with questions, just one-ish. Are you close? Are you finished? But now, if it's good, let's extend through tangles of paragraphs. Sentences or nipples or foreskins or necks or your particularly bunched nerves. Do you touch me to show me how you like it? Is it the little things or the entire splay of little things that are selfish? Stein. Now all this is still sentences. Paragraphs are still why you were selfish. Her sentences are the hardest things. The Cloud author's monosyllables are the hardest things. They're things pure. A word is an entangle if it is a failure. What those fans who think they are doing her sentences do not understand is that each stroke, each pounded key is decisive. In a sentence, there is no ambiguity. I judge is the phrase of an unyielding sovereign, not I. And so I take it and smirk and move on. A paragraph for emotion, a paragraph for falling under the thrall of placeless questions. Are we closing up shop? A paragraph, a sentence, a ceiling. This letter is entirely from the other Jack, the nervous, worried guy who puts letters into envelopes and receives them from same. The other Jack, the one who wrote you all the letters, is puzzled about the change to post offices. This Jack, me, being more practical, is wondering. Letters to James Alexander by Jack Spicer. As I am nervous and waiting for you, your letter, with no address but your simple name, Jack, finds its destination in the belly of my desk. So many Jacks haunt me. Whistle, Spicer, the modernist, and you. Jake might count too. Instead, your name is nothing like theirs. My desires, my plans are out the window with you before me. As in the first time I dreamt of you, I must simply wait for us to drift together. Oh, the letter I cannot bring myself to put into your hands, that I cannot allow you to turn over. I curse that it takes 4 sour monkeys for me to reach to you when you're not here, saying it's horrible, but I already missed you 2 days after we, crisscross applesauce on my bed, turned to each other and you simply said, yeah, and then we met each other. Now you and knowing you are truly on the tip of my tongue as you agreed with me. I miss you too. As I release pressure from the back of your head, my thumb begins tracing your cheek and its bones, and you are a mirror. Then for us, each thumb is the center of the universe. Is there a practical way to write to each other? Someday you will read that I write of you. To cut a letter. The overlarge knife traces the inside of the spine, jutting and jaggedly dancing over an occasional letter. 3 pages messily excised from the notebook, and then I see the steady perforations where you're meant to tear. The poor letter to Kat, the poor letter to you. My unsent letters wait on the windowsill opposite the aluminum plant clinging to life. Really, I've got to buy stamps. For whom? I thought I wouldn't hide anything from you, reader. I thought I'd give you every name without an explanation. Opening the hard elliptic shell, you were to see the muscular tangle of a tongue that drags itself along. It would open itself. With all hope, you'd understand as it moved. I'd hoped for no secret to be absent, for no restraint to be present. Claiming up, though. But again, I explain what we are. Among the shoals of level-headed bodies and thoughts, a little fear comes about. What if I've gone about it all wrong, and I'll have to beg to explain? It'll be hard to say who this is for. Not really. Do you think explaining how we skipped rocks but first turned them over as gifts in one another's hands, how my ass got singularly soaked on a half-submerged stone, how we went upstairs in the gallery and accidentally broke into his empty studio, how in less than a block you finished your coffee all together, says writing will never be private, someone at the door or above us, or says we're trying to share some clarity. Maybe I want to go back to the edge of the river with knowing on the tip of my tongue. What beautiful trout, what fat gophers. Much love, Jay. Bruce Boone writes of Spicer, this poetry is against you, a non-mystical thought expressed mystically, because it's first of all for you. It's a recognition of the deformations of the world as it is now, a social inability to meet human needs. Calling James Jim, but signing everything love Jack. So is this I with all my letters signed, much love Jay. James, in his response, squirreled away in the Berkeley archive, says, don't call me Jim. Antipathy, control, love. There is not a hard enough word in the world to do it all, so I write in paragraphs. How to safely seal rejection in the box or poem with bushels of hope. All this fear, all this dedication. For Dick, innocence is important. It has meaning. Look, it can give us hope against the very winds that we batter against it. We hate, we fuck, we accept and thwart our own desires in the spiraling development of an us. To dedicate, to admit one has a self and hand it over to you anyway. When we blow out candles to signal our presence in the night or the truth of our wishes on birthdays, we announce our sacrifice to our innocent surroundings. To say innocent, not to be good. I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. I say again, stop thinking about sex and do your reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next reader is Quinn Gruber.
All right, hi everybody. My name's Quinn, and I'm gonna be reading a series of 4 poems that are pretty much all about looking and seeing. All right. Room. Crack open the door. There's nothing here except breath. But look, there's a window. Sweep away the dust. The sun presses a rectangle lightly on the floor. This always happens to me. I'm standing next to you by the sink. I turn on the faucet and you see me. How long can I walk next to you, a stranger? Put my head down, you don't glance at me. Sweep across the room, I don't register as a face. Over the months, a series of weathers, scratches run across my vision. I take them off, I don't recognize you either. The difference between equality and equity is that you can look at something and know where it is. I spend so much time calculating my own sight that I forget to become visible. I slip into the water and watch you from below. Will. Just because someone has died doesn't mean they don't exist. It's just easier to stop taking care of them. I won't have to think about my own death. Future deaths are the edge of my experienced present. This also means that I can plan what happens to me after I die. I want to be cremated and buried as soil for a tree. However, I'm concerned that someone will cut me down when I am not remembered. The tree grown from my body becomes a floorboard or a ream of paper. Look into a graveyard. Even the carefully carved stones sink into the ground. I shimmer in my skin. I shimmer in my skin. I shimmer beneath my skin, tighter than my tissue. I feel each joint in relation. Awareness of ligament connections. Commuters jostling to board the subway brush against each other. I look down the middle of the train car, which warped perspective of my face. Graffiti obscures my mirror self. Climb outside of form, superimpose a recognizable appearance upon the buzzing self. I trace my outline and duplicate it, so I am inside and outside myself. I wish I could blame people calling me not me on the distortion of my face, ask questions about poetic form and answer with meaning, as if I could change myself to convey a message I want to share. I lied, I'm going to read a few more than 4. Okay. This one doesn't have a title. I've been reading May Bersenbrugge, and maybe distance folds instead of separating, and memory is reincarnation. Time does not bury an experience. Rather, thinking of you is reflection, or how a tranquil lake surface nurtures the potential of ripples or stone skipping. Although we form new memories, so instead of reincarnation, say weaving, instead of lake, say river that flows deep and clear like love or light. And here's the last. How long until I realize you aren't here? Will you answer if I knock on the door? 10 owls on a bare tree outside the window. A sign, a new name. Down the air, your hand flows somewhere different along my ear. Would I have learned to speak to you? Place your hand on my throat and hear me. Pass the sound to you a little late. I tilt my head and your laugh tells me where you are. Can others hear us here, always? A plant grows so slowly that when you look away, it's circled with years. New growth, my wood lungs under your palm. I breathe. What do you feel? Do you understand what I want to tell you through the layers of compact earth? Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Our next reader is Rema Hort.
Hi, so this is a poem that some of you have heard before in a different version. It is called Strange Bedfellows. Jamie didn't call me back, and I can't get in touch with Maya, and Daniel will never speak to me again, and hasn't spoken to me again since the last time he declared he would never speak to me again. I think about how Esme and I don't talk anymore, but Bess and I talk too much. All there is between us is words and sentences, and I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message. I toss and I turn, and I wake up to the sound of construction, a paper monument being built and rebuilt. It was a monument of a dream within a city, within a home. It was the sound of a jackhammer and an elevator jingle. I can't remember exactly, but it was something about how Ian always asks how my day is, but I don't remember my days. They blend into each other, and all there is just sunlight and the lamplight and the time in between, and the neighbors who tip their cowboy hats in my general direction and who climb on my roof, but Evan and Eli don't know my name and I don't know theirs. I lost Laurel on the trail with Bill and John, and good riddance for that, and good riddance to them. Alex thinks I'm fucked up, fucking other fucked up people, and we'll all be fucked up together, but Malone actually knows it. Maya's an ocean away, but Chef's only a pond. If only I could just swim across and see how he's doing. How is he doing? How our life would be, could be together, a life of roasted strawberries and text always left on read and phone calls and missed FaceTimes. Kent sung me a lullaby while Susan couldn't carry a tune. Billy wrote me a poem and all I could say was thank you. And all I could say was thank you. Thank you for the monuments and words, a window to how you feel about me, a declaration of a dream. Thank you. Kathy likes how I introduce myself, but doesn't ever care to say goodbye. So there is no end, there is no final. Just like Jack and Keelan, I learned, but I couldn't improve. I avoid Mac's eye contact, embrace Malone's arms. Malone sent me a message, but I can't bring myself to respond. What if Vivian or Olivia? I call Chef and make omelets over the phone. I forget about the ocean and the pond and the monuments and think about the windows to our lives and our pockets and the windows we watch as days cease to exist. And this endless night fucks with my sleeping pattern. I made a friend. I talked to Tien, just like old times, but the old times, which weren't so long ago, are plain foreign now, like a myth with centuries of age, and all there is a contact under favorites that isn't a favorite. Exist as a myth on my phone, a monument of profile, address, and email and number, a window into a person who could have been, would have been, a window that is a paper monument. Jamie's doing well. Thank you for asking. I miss Storm's voice and the way she made me feel like myself. She is in Cali with Keith and Will and Rowan and Keaton. She came back and so did the rest of them, and they're all just a window in a pond and another window away. I've forgotten about George. I wish Rosie was still here and that Jonathan didn't leave. Hannah wrote a note to Elizabeth, who wrote a note to Maya before it finally got back to me. Danny lives alone. Luke is underwater. Philip is the water. It was a scary dream. There are people everywhere, names and faces of lives lived and lost, of friends and strangers on the street, and they all exist in my head. I think of Soph and Juliet and Adonis and how Michael still smokes, even though he said he would quit, and I keep thinking about that, and the quitting and the wishing, and I wish they would just sprout upon my body and exist outside of my head. He gives me back my phone and he tells me he does love me, but there's no windows in his eyes. And if a window isn't a window, then what the fuck is it then? I wish Isaiah and Jack will get what they deserve, but Jana should definitely get worse. Lauren knows Amy isn't real and Frey can't draw her. And if Frey can and I can't, then what can I do right? I can dream, I can worry, I can have the imagined people, the characters in my life story come to play and fuck up a night that never sees morning. I think about how I always loved BB, but I guess I'll settle for Charlotte, and maybe I ought to forgive Nina and Harrison. But if I'm gonna forgive them, then I should also forgive Olivia and Billy and Sophie, and they're monuments to something, thinking and overthinking. I wish Sophie was a real life redhead like Hannah or Maya, adding us my attention. Taylor ate some dinner, but what about Texas and Cole and John and Gabe? Can you imagine being someone else's monument? Matthias drew my portrait and it was very good, but it didn't look like me. What's his face said hello. Isla is busy on Tuesday and every other day. Yanu is impossible to reach, and so is G. And Danny, a close friend and creative creature who's never in close enough proximity. I'd like a poem. I like to say thank you. I'd like to say more than thank you. I like to be filled with words and say all of them, but I guess I will settle for thank you. I think Bess misses me, but not as much as I miss her, and she's 2 pillows away, and fuck, if that's not an ocean, I don't know what is. Favor is busy, Storm is dating Amalia, and I think that's good for me, or at least it isn't bad for me. Sophie might actually enjoy my company, which would be a first, and what's his face has no other friends, which is why he loves me, and if he didn't, he wouldn't love me. Maybe I'm seeing Franny tonight. Lauren is still sleeping with John and calling him every day, even though they aren't dating anymore, and just imagine that. Imagine how she must stay up all night with a list of people in her head, and they're all just John. Then I'm ashamed of my people and my phone contacts that will never be called, but also never be deleted, like Emma and Noel and Olivia and Billy and Sophie and Keelan, who I don't know that well, but a window is a window, and we had a window once, certainly not a monument, but honestly, right now, I can't tell which is which. If he wrote me a poem, I think I could say more than thank you, and if Elliot and Lee and Robert and Michelle and Kent and Eli and on, I just really like a poem, and strangers as bedfellows, and strange bedfellows, and fellows of the bed, and strange beds with some fellows in them, and more melatonin gummies, please. Soph and Tom are still dating, so is Tien and Jacob, and even George and Andrew, and even Sophie and Eli are getting married, so I guess there's hope for the rest of us. And Laura peaked in high school. Amanda thinks I'm nosy with this not-so-Semitic nose, and I miss him, or the idea of him. All I have is Hilton and Tom and Al and Stein, and Amanda's living it up in the city, and Noel is lecturing bullshit and calling me a motherfucker. Me, a motherfucker. While Susan sent me a package, Olivia wrote me a letter. Rebecca is here if I need anything, which I don't. I don't need anything. I don't need anything or anyone. I am fine, thank you. These are just the people that visit me in this perpetual night. These are the monuments of memory that make up a life story, and if I can't read it like that, then can I even read? I sent Maya a poem for Alma, Alex for Scotland. Audrey stopped texting me, just coincidentally what I told Mariah, who likes Adrian's turtles. Ty got rid of her red chair, so I guess good riddance to that monument. I can't sleep, I'm awaiting anxiety, your name, number, face, social security, please, message, hi, send, how are you, send, oh, I'm fine, thank you, send. Scrolling through notifications, I see your name everywhere, I see your face nowhere, I'm tired of time, I'm tired of sleep, I check and recheck your punctuation a few times over just to make sure I'm reading it correctly. It kind of looks like a poem. Waiting for a paper monument to all the people I've had the pleasure of knowing and haven't really known at all. I read Billy's poem called Malone and Storm and Soph and Danny all over again, and thank you.
Our next reader is Nicky Kotler.
Hey guys, I'm Nicky, and I'm going to be reading 2 poems talking about the repetition of names in my family. This first one is called Stop. Hey Virgil, yeah, both of you. Stop giving me so much work. I'll let loose one of my 10 cousins Joes on you. And for that matter, stop using the same names. I know countless Mikes, 4 Henrys, 2 Ritas, and way too many Matts. My family composes most of the repeat names. My cousin's wife and sister are both named Merrill. What the F? I guess there are more uncommon names. After all, whatever happened to Isidore? Never really hear that name anymore. Odd. Anyway, I'm the only one I know with my name. That is, I'm the only guy I know who goes by Nicky, not Nick. Scratch that. The only girl I know who's named Nicole also goes by Nick. What was once a nickname befitting of a child has grown up with me. Never really thought about changing it until it was too late. Let that be a lesson. Don't give your kid a bad nickname. It might just stick. My great-grandfather went by Mickey. According to the US government, he was Lieutenant Colonel Milton Laitman. According to his birth certificate, he was named Martin. How does that follow? There are a lot of weird things on my dad's side. It's his cousins who are the Merrills. In fact, I would say names are the least odd thing going on with that family. Just look at my cousin James's Facebook. Granted, my other cousin James could probably give him a run for his money in being a weirdo. My middle name is James. Guess I got lucky. Missed whatever is wrong with them. Thank God my sister is my dad's favorite. Of course he would listen to her input for my name. I guess I should be grateful. Could be around 30 years old, have a beard, and spend an alarming amount of time on my computer. That description fits either of my cousin James. Names are funny. It's as if they determine what you end up doing. After all, I cannot think of a better job for a guy named Lawrence than being a lawyer. A bankruptcy one at that. Guess his business-oriented name prepared him for that career of boredom. Maybe that's why I kept my nickname. I don't want to have the same fate as my family. Or maybe I just don't want the same name. This other one is called Something Strange. My cousin James and James are probably the strangest people I've ever met. And when I say James, I mean James. They will have a conniption if they were referred to as Jamie, which is quite a way to make a lasting impression on 4-year-old me. Although mentioned before, let me give some better background. James, my dad's first cousin, is 35 years old, married, has one kid, is bald, and his fun fact is he is batshit crazy. The worst part is he's probably the sanest between his brother and sister. Those two have a mini feud going on, which involves the sister skipping the brother's wedding to go to a square dancing convention. Speaking of work, I don't think James works. Well, that goes for both of them. Despite going to law school, James could not find the time from posting insane stuff on Facebook or aspiring to be a professional piano player, despite not being very good, to actually get a job. Don't worry though, he still has time to go to Magic the Gathering conventions. My other cousin James is a little closer in age to me. He is in his 20s, also has a beard, but has hair. And like James, cannot make time from his busy schedule playing computer games in order to hold down a job. Unlike my dad's cousin, however, who, at least has multiple degrees, James inserts himself as being the most knowledgeable person on any subject. Honestly, I'm sure the other James does the same. I'm thankfully spared from knowing, though, as he always seems to be busy not being a productive member of society at any family event he goes to. As previously noted, my middle name is James. I'm named after my mom's late uncle. Now, I never met this man, so far from me to slander his name. However, I do know that his wife was crazy, so maybe there is something with his name. Of course, I've never felt the urge to clean the fireplace while a fire was going, so I'm hoping it being my middle name will protect me. It being my middle name certainly protects me from sharing the same name, which, at this point, might just be a blessing in and of itself. The real positive is that I don't have to grow a beard. Don't really think that would do me any favors. My family seems to have bad luck with the name James. I don't know. I'd call it the family curse, but I think the square dancing feud going on with James's family is probably a more deserving affliction. I really cannot explain it, but it seems there are some forces at work that I don't really understand. What's even more concerning is that I'm only one suggestion by my sister away from being named James and not Nicholas. I guess I should be more grateful.
Nicky!
All right, our next reader is Kelly Lou.
Hi, I'll be reading two poems. The first one is called After Despite Your Notices, and Despite Your Notices is a poem by Peter Gizzi, which this is written after. This is my muse, the one I stole from leaving you, an undoing to take to the world that will ultimately require my art in passing. This pilfering is a walk laid and warm by the grave we never used to talk to, the face for one last accomplice. All reverie and reverence finally and thoroughly realized, this is your station. The one I disguise under intellectualism, where having blurs the distinctions of what can be desired. And pages never awake, always there to wonder at the behavior of my neck and direct my hand exactly where they presume to have taken me, only to mistake my verbose posturing for something real. Talk closer and I will still slip through the bars silently, slightly and tenderly afraid to reach you. I want to feel irreversible, a refraction running from one peripheral to another, something impermanent but at which always comes back. That I am archived apart from all the others. So please see me across the dimmer tomorrow, even if we discovered something sober in place of that which we were hoping to find. Because memories were never made to stay frozen and I reject the monologue. Like airplane banners swaying in pirouettes atop a Wednesday sky, so dull and blue that it could only excavate a different culture, as if you were fated to feel this ethnography as if we might. It told and went without the curtain of anticipation, but its passage from intact yellow parchment stains us still. Even the ambulances fade so that now we can only flirt. We were once so alive. And I don't know if a residual can forever be phosphorescent. I reassemble my vision thus and see that obsession isn't funny anymore. It wraps me incessantly where thinking is a departure from this universe. I am guarded despite your sculpture and anatomy, or because of it. That index didn't crash. I just lay back onto my frame again, the forgiving hue of its beauty. I accept this by means of deception, like how a catalog will relinquish choice. So here again is the ring of your telephone from mine. Where are you calling from? A booth icy from the constant sunlight, revealing and detached. Too bright. I'm off to my encore now, constructed in the deletion where time is perhaps younger than I am, having turned me into tattoos, bleached hair, abstraction, socialism, and this humming neon you call ephemera. Earth so flat, it wises me up every time you tell me you love me. I err against my old house on Osage where you saw me for the last time. The friendly block emails I still get after I moved out write my prior existence into display. As the past thinking of all my unacceptable ways folds accidentally into this collage, the ones I stole to give back to you. And this next one is called In View of That Room. In view of that room, where we are talking smoothly about adult things, never poetry, and you stop in tandem with the Spartan sky right before retiring for bed, where I pinpoint the first time we met and your name meant less than hello. And instead of speech, a look up to the exercises of the moth in the direction of the lighted hall, longing to escape, which, faintly decorating our shared breath in the air, does not find enough space for further impressions, nothing to leave behind on a window pane, a couch, or a bed. Where the circle of days is pulled into another fear of things that might only remain scenery should I continue forward as a possession, and vice versa. I feel useless in pointing them out as though you would mind, and instead shuffle a language into that which will not disturb the way your dress skirts the grass as you stroll, or break the assembly line of our contradictions. Frank and Larry, Gertrude and Alice, Juna and Thelma. Where night breaks and our immobility constitutes anxiety rather than repose. So here is your head in the crook of my arm, the siren of expectation, the magnetism of vision. My mouth snaps and my words freeze. So here I cannot flick away the droning hovering the bed nor capture it, remembering the tragedy of the sylph and the scarf that pulls apart her breath, the critical distance of air and the men who watch. So here our habitats are a conditioning and not a blessing, trailing the limitations of fixed stars and false resolve, which splits at the moment the outside coasts in, makes nicks of our body. That's it, thank you.
Our next reader is Quincy Morgan.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be reading the first poem I'm going to be reading is called America Runs on Infrastructure. I think I write poetry to complain. None of my girlfriends know who Shana Twain is. How is that possible? That really doesn't impress me much. Women weakened legs. Sezertek funti adaparkban. Those are the two strangest things men have said to me in the past 24 hours. I do not know what either of them meant, equally confused by unrelated terms. The second was a pickup line. The first was not. Apparently, the guys you want to avoid took introduction to Hungarian. Don't worry, girls say confusing things too. Dunkin' Donuts will give you the most massive sized coffee if you ask nicely enough. I think that this is my favorite reminder that I live in the US of A. It sure as hell is not the shitty infrastructure. American government could not figure that out if they were trained to, and they aren't, because a bunch of politicians are trying to do the job of civil engineers. In Copenhagen, they just hire fucking civil engineers to do it. How do politicians get that job? And why would anyone become a civil engineer? Why would anyone become a politician? Very selfless. Makes no sense to me. If you want to be paid that poorly, just be an artist. At least then you can be both selfish and broke. For a casual relationship, we get an awful lot of coffee and don't have that much sex. I only drink decaf because full calf runs me up a wall. I get that from my mother. That and a decent amount of neuroses. I'm not that radically out of touch with reality, just a little bit. Sometimes it's fun to run up walls. Hey Maria, come get your dude, he's hanging out on the ceiling. We used to go to this diner for coffee, EJ's Luncheonette on 71st and Lex, teal seats, massive people watching windows. They'd charge you $6 for a cup of black hot coffee. That's a New York price right there. Oh, and Starbucks will pull that shit. But not my darling Dunkin' Donuts. I had a full cup of full calf today, $3. Done is done. This is my next poem. I have a problem. When something breaks, I want it fixed now. If the sink floods at dinner, I want it unclogged that night before I go to bed. If it has to sit, I'm in anguish. If my relationship doesn't go how I wanted it to go, I want it fixed that instant, or I want a new one with someone I like more right now. If my professor assigns homework or my boss gives me a task, I don't make plans until it's done. So I wish it was done right now. When I move, the house must be set up in the first day, right now, which never happens, of course. But the feeling that it's not puts me into a frenzy. I just want it all over with and done. If patience is a virtue, I'm no angel. But that, amongst other things, would disqualify me. I'm so painfully obsessed with getting everything done in an instant, I don't think I ever consider, and maybe you don't either, what happens when it is all done. You know, when the sink is fixed and your love is found and you hand in your last assignment, when you're all moved in, because at the end, when it's all done, it's all done. This one is called Heels and Ice Cream. Why do so many kids fear the dark? I mean, all children come out of what I assume is a dark womb, unless there's some kind of LED strip lighting up there no one told me about. But we come out used to the dark and shocked by the light. And then yet so many of us can't shut the door because we need the hallway light on. What makes us so willing and able to conjure fear in our minds? Why do we think there are monsters in the corners and not the things we enjoy? Why shouldn't a pair of designer heels and a pint of ice cream come out of my dark corners? Why instead is it always snakes? Who teaches us that? I guess it's the natural desire to stay alive through infancy. When you're so small and incapable, maybe fear of everything is justified. I'll leave the stupid nightlight on for now, but I swear one day I'll throw it out. This last one's called Comfort Food. Do you think that we ever know what we want? Because I sincerely doubt it. Okay, take this example. You think you want children. So you have some kids. Not that I know what that is like. But okay, so what happens when you have kids? And bam, you realize you fucking hate kids. And now you have one, so you're fucked. It's like food. You don't know what you like until you try it. What if kids are the split pea soup of your world? What do you do then? And you just want to spit it out as soon as you get a bite. Or what about when you pick a person to date? Like, I get that that's a trial period, but you don't know what you don't like until you try it. You move in together and you realize you'd like to go back to your old comfort food. Your ex is mac and cheese, if you're still following, by the way. Seriously though, are you going to go on and break blue cheese heart just because you want mac and cheese now again? You thought you liked it and you got some at the store and now you hate it and you have a huge chunk of blue cheese. Do you now just toss it? And what if you hate your next snack even more? Was it a bad decision to toss out blue cheese? Honestly, probably not, but you still shouldn't answer mac and cheese texts. I mean, unless you want to be bloated and feel bad about yourself. See, do you ever really know what you want? I doubt it, and I think we're all just guessing. Divorce rates don't lie, baby. That's it for me.
Thank you. Our next reader is Anika Prakash.
Hi. My first poem is called Portrait with a Field of Mango Trees. Every time I close my eyes, I see stuttered images on repeat, an absence of fruit, an overabundance of lineation. This becomes rows of mango trees, juice glistening orange, droplets rolling down my fingers, joints growing sticky sweet, puffs of wilting air expanding without quite dissipating, slowly but surely occupying the space between us. There are many things I would like to tell you, and most of them I do. I'm falling endlessly in every direction, and I don't know how to stop. In my best dreams, I wake up in a field of mango trees, and they're just beginning to blossom, red stems littered with wrinkled green buds. Although the trees are bare, my mouth is full and wet, and I stand there motionless and tranquil. When I'm not there, I'm running ceaselessly into light and other abstractions of you. Geometric to organic, chemical distinction to natural intertwinement, you and I would touch on repeat. Your hair, your hands, your tongue. The mangoes ripening outside our window. Soon we will pull them from the trees, hot summer wind whipping through our hair, sun glowing fire against our bodies, over and over until there's nothing left. The next poem's called Channel Orange, and it's after the album by Frank Ocean, and it's written to myself. I cut glass into oblong teardrops. I drape myself in pink. I'm the morning running behind you, taking your shaky nightmare hands, dragging you away from absent fluorescence. I've willed and wanted this for so long, this bleak fever dream, this fading road, the one that begins at the lake and ends at a vacancy sign. I remember the half summer we knew together, our bodies constructed from warmth and bleeding light. I gave you every name I knew and still cannot find the right one, which is to say you were turbulence before I could find a word for it. There's nothing more left here, nothing more we can do in our regrettably finite lives. All I can ask of you is to stay with me this unimagined night on the fringes of star-studded tranquility. Every dream I have begins with TV static and ends with a rainbow. I give you the colors you've lost over the years, but it's not enough. You are home and finally gentle. Your empty torso becomes full again, and yet I'm shrinking into a lesser version of you, which is to say, when I grow old, I will know nothing but impulse and excavated memory. You tell me to close the curtains so you can cry, and a moth flies out from between the folds. I could ask about your dreams of hypnotized bodies and hazy sirens, but I would rather let it drown in the bay, which is to say I can forget the snowbank and floodlights and screaming and just tuck this under the doormat like my house key. Which is to say, 3 years ago I opened myself up for you, but you can take your oil paints and desk lamp and satin sheets. Which is to say, we knew what was coming long before it happened. Which is to say, that one dull night when we read together in a desolate park, there was a sickly burning at the bottom of my throat. The last one's called La Vita Nuova, and it's after Dante Alighieri. I warbled through night after night with my hands in my hair and tears budding at the corners of my eyes, missing somebody I'd spent most of my life missing, but this time in a different way. Everything settled into yellow. The places where I gave way. The folding, the opening, the warbling, endless. He came to me like a dream, and for so long everything was a dream, until the days began collapsing together like an accordion. The folding, the opening, until it seemed as though there was only the folding left. But like with most things, I was mistaken. The budding tears bloomed into a field of pink and purple hydrangeas, spilling over the concrete edges and into the street, everything aghast with vibrance and joy. It came to me like a dream, and the dream had remained. Even when night fell and people stumbled through the roads, their shoes tracked petals across the city. The sun rose and the petals turned again towards the sky. The folding, the opening, Everything's fun and sung in color. I stood at the corner waiting for you with a bouquet of freshly plucked flowers. I saw you and folded my eyes to the ground. You came closer and everything opened. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Isabella Schlact.
Okay. This first poem is called The Mirror to Come. It's inspired by one of Yayoi Kusama's Infinity Rooms and a quote from the short film, The Film to Come. She sits surrounded by mirrors, mirrored floor, mirrored ceiling, mirrored walls, mirrored balls glued onto the mirrored floor. She loves it, sits down barefoot, faces look the same as the last time she saw them, suspended behind glass, each face its own chest of experiences never quite touched again. The eyes that saw Gail's newly discovered travertine and the election of Barack Obama, the lips that tasted red velvet cake and cinnamon lip gloss. Behind the mirrors are doors unentered, stockroom of the shoe store, dorm room down the hall, imagined identical twin. The schema is there, but the reality is a curtain, a lock, a genetic combination away. At Gail's house, she traced her finger along the edge of the water. The schema is there, the mirror is here. To swim along the glass is to trace the finger along the edge of a second infinity, identically mirrored and out of grasp. This next one is called Fruit Roll-Ups, and I feel like it taps into that middle school sort of vibe. Since I first drafted this poem, I've been watching a lot of the show Pen 15, and so I decided to weave that in a little bit. You're not one for gossip. With your friends, you've always unrolled your truths slowly and stickily, like a just overheated fruit roll-up yearning to separate from its thin and greasy plastic. You've never known the right way to eat a fruit roll-up. You looked it up on Reddit, and a couple of 13-year-olds coated in Dorito dust told you to remove the fruit roll-up from the plastic, shove the treat into a ball, and shove that ball right into your mouth in one fructose-filled go. Not your style. You slowly peel the fruit roll-up from the plastic in strips. It is a mess. Your fingers are a greasy, sticky mess that you try to save with hand sanitizer, but you only spread the syrup across your knuckles in thin layers, and now you are nowhere near a sink, and your knuckles are cracking, and you wish you would have just stuck with Planters salted peanuts from the beginning. You're the first to tell Anna to daydream about her crush. You're the first to tell Anna to daydream, but Anna won't do it. You suspect that it's because Anna's daydream would consist of resting her lips on his and tasting his free chapstick from the nurse's office and fearing that that greasy scratch of his underwashed chin stubble might sand her lower lip into a pile of sawdust. It does not count as gossip to refer to Anna's crush as the grocery man. This is a much needed code. Only you and Anna and Maya can know who the grocery man is. You're not one for clownery. Anna and Maya believe that the umbrella for clownery is uncomfortably large. Anna and Maya believe that the umbrella for clownery is wet with nearly every drop of the rain of romance. It is clownery to text your ex. It is clownery to have a regrettable hookup. It is clownery to fall for someone who does not feel the same way. It is clownery to fall for someone. It is clownery to fall. It is clownery to feel. Anna and Maya believe that you haven't fallen under the umbrella yet. You haven't texted your ex. You haven't had a regrettable hookup. You haven't even held hands, but you have fallen before, and you do daydream, and you can't bring yourself to admit that. And that truth clings to greasy, sticky shrink wrap. This next one is a set of two poems. 072701, Part 1. You are a complicated person and a complicated presence. I've learned that it's possible to go from best friend to family friend in that order. I've written about you before. I think your face is a state-dependent memory. Only in my darkest moments do I think of writing about you and the way you treated me. We never had a direct conversation. I figured that you couldn't handle confrontation, that I wouldn't get the answers I needed, so there was no point in asking questions. Our families still see each other. Your mother wished me a happy birthday this year. You didn't. I think you feel badly. You've never apologized, but this year at the Thanksgiving table, I made an offhand joke about relational aggression, and everyone laughed except you, and my mother saw your face turn red, and your eyes traced the closest corner of the tablecloth. 072701, Part 2. When you told me your birthday, I twitched. I tried not to show it. I think I hid it well. I think it's symbolic that you were born on this day. You and the second January 12th represent a new chapter in my life. You're funny, you support me. I think you appreciate me for who I am, and I appreciate that. I really, truly do. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to skip our second to last reader just for now. Zoom, some problems, but we're gonna get Robb back. And while we wait for Robb to come back, Cynthia Zhou is going to read for us.
Hello. Okay. So I have two poems. The first one is called A Love Letter to Neopets. Thank you, first of all, for dress-up games. There is no shine like the shine of some yellow 8-bit Chombi shoes, no fit as sharp as the polka dot warrior cape. Thank you for digital art forums. I've seen the best minds of my generation bloom forth from unashamed anime fan art and hot pink dragon walls. Thank you for pet pets and Wingo Ball, for trading posts in Mirka Chase. Thank you for my first password, which I've used for everything ever since, including my bank account. Thank you for being the first blessing on each Saturday morning, solace after a second grade scuffed knee or California's rare rainy days. And thank you for making sure that Neopets do not die. I come back home after 1,000 days away and find they never stopped waiting at the door for me. Maybe this is testament to existing for the existence of others. Maybe this is ritual for the sake of ritual, but here is what I know. After I stopped playing Neopets in the 4th grade, my dad inherited my account. Couldn't let them go hungry, he joked. But every night just before bedtime, I'd see him feed my baby Bloomaroo, my yellow kachik. A dedication to nothing but the possibility of my return. Tell the neighbors, I'm coming back to take care of you the way you took care of me. How you told me that the word little is always smaller than small. How you can speak out smallness like the word knows it exists, but you have to cradle little in your mouth for half a lifetime. Wait till it curls off the edge of your tongue. Little. I'm back to say that I've never really left. The gutters in my throat have all sprouted flowers. And to this hymn you tell me, I know you're getting better because you've started singing in the shower again. The hydrangeas, twisting their spines after the rain, remind me of pixels in the shapes of little creatures, saying I am hungry, saying I can stay alive if you let me, blush blue bird, vermilion kitten like light, you are not real, but you could be. Dad, did you know that I haven't killed a single plant since coming to college? Did you know I've been eating more? I touch my tongue and say, I can keep you alive, at least for today. And my second poem is called For Paris When I See You. Paris. In a different lifetime, I remember reading that the past is a country from which we have all immigrated, that its loss is part of our common humanity. Periodically, this truth catches on the seams of your skin, how translucent and sinewed we've both grown with every knock of sky-bright spring. Paris. Let me itemize every hypothetical future of yours, every goalie bleeding into centuries of creation, all the ways twilight beckons your citizens to the edge of balconies. I wanted to tell you that survival is always the loneliest affair, that the passage of time will make exit wounds of us all. Paris. In one of these imaginary futures, you are long buried under a hilltop of flowers. Sprays of milkweed and bluebell and lily of the valley raise your moon mouth to greet a solitary dusk tinged with stars, and remind them you were once a heavenly body, too. Paris. Tell me about how your people survive. Tell me about the ways they dance barefoot on tin roofs and woke to radio orchestras. Tell me about those who were so gripped by the pinpricks of light above they couldn't sleep, the lucid dreamers haunting the burrows of Montmartre. Tell me about the honey kitchen lights that never dim, the crimson Chinatowns, the dandelion yellow, they all painted their first apartments. Tell me about how your hometown street remembers every foot that treads across it. Paris. When the veil of night settles like a second skin, all of our invisible cities overlap the visible one. There is a Paris in which sunflowers bloom from each hollow throat, another where apron mothers call from the screen door. There are many Parises where no lover outlasts the other. I wished for deer as silver as salmon to envelop your bloodstream. A chorus of clover soft dough floating through art museums, down metro lines. And isn't this wanting a type of Genesis too? Paris, what I mean to say is this. Grant me all your reckless past, and I will weave theoretical futures for each one of them. No homeland survives as vividly as the homelands we've constructed in the chambers of our hearts, the private and otherworldly way we fabricate realities simply by believing in them. We open windows to hear cars passing and interpret it as tenderness, just to hear you say, "Look, my love, I will exist, if only for you." Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. We have one more reader, but due to the wonders and mysteries of technology, monuments, windows, fruit roll-ups, all sorts of sexual things, Robb's not here right now. So I don't know what to do except for let's celebrate and be so grateful that we got to hear these poets. And I'm just gonna stall for like a few minutes or like 20 seconds while maybe Robb will call in to read to us or try one more time. It's weird because everyone's watching on YouTube and we're in this Zoom gallery. We really appreciate the audience. I'm gonna look at my email one more time. Thanks everyone for holding tight. Well, I'm very excited that Andrés is gonna read a poem for us while we wait for Robb. That's right, Writer's House come through. Yes.
What's up, y'all? All right, so, okay, so this one actually just got published today in the, what's it called? Sienna Solstice issue 2 magazine. So check that out. And it's called Huevos con Tortilla. Open. Now I'm cooking huevos con tortilla to 25-8 by Bad Bunny. Open. And me and Fernie blast Pista Nodal in my dad's car, singing to the tears in our eyes when the sun has set. We have laughed at the rooftops and their stars. Open. Now I'm going 105 on the highway, pumping blood like nitrous. I scream and so do my eyes, but I get home safe that night. Open. Now I'm cooking huevos con tortilla to 25-8 by Bad Bunny. And fuck, I could use a smoke. And I lose count of the sunsets. Open, and my mom is burning sage again. She talks about how the smoke forms, it curls and wisps, and the corridos in my neighborhood sing to the doves on the wire and they sing back. Open, and I'm cooking huevos con tortilla to 25-8 by Bad Bunny. And one of the lights above the stove is out. And I take my nana's apron out of the drawer, stitched from the same hands that held me and called me Andresito. And the lines in my hands look like hers, open, and there is no violence in these lines. That is where lineage ended. Open to the sunroof, and the street lights become their own constellations, and they are not as extravagant as the ones in the sky, but they're what I have now. Open, and home is not what I remember it to be. Open, and I'm cooking huevos con tortilla to 25-8 by Bad Bunny. The maize yellows and browns, and the eggs need salt. The salsa hurts my nose sometimes. And the glass plate stays warm and the sun is up, and I lose track of when it sets. Open, and I haven't called my nana in a minute. And she's not going to the illegal casinos anymore, or at least not that she's telling her daughters. Open, and the corridos are still singing, and the gray doves sing back, and they eat huevos con tortilla left on the patio table, and the sun sets, and there is no need to track you. Thank you.
Thank you. You never know what you'll find at the Writers' House, in the Writers' House community. Thank you so much for jumping in and sharing with us. And I hope everyone checks out that issue. And now, some technological something. I have Robb Soslow on FaceTime on my phone, and somehow it's gonna happen.
Okay. Well, that's just life, right? I think that's poetry. A little bit of Zoom static, jazz. So I guess I love also to make problems for myself. So to close things out,
This is iconic.
I'm going to read two to three poems. And thank you guys for sticking through it. So this is called The Librarian Errant. In the Library of Congress, but every single thing written on shelves that stretch. My coworkers have been colonized by mimetic threats that live in the books. It's our sad little haystack, and the faces I recognize. They search for needles, coherent books, new gold, formed by random arrangement. Someone, I'm sure, will pick up this. I'm old, and I'm richer than sin. But despite being a man of letters all my life, I've not once written a thing another person might read. I opened a book a lifetime ago, but I remember exactly what it said. Isn't the thumb curative? I turned the page, it said, truth self-evident, all equal alien rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of I told you. Yep, gibberish, you might find meaning in it. But nothing does until you say it does. So I write fertile poems, all writ already, because I know that possessing something is nothing like finding it. Okay, this next poem is called Course. This is an afterbirth. Medicine, necessary things, fetal membrane and placentium. I cried for holes to fuck or sleep in, not more. That cry, sin, change. Rub your face on mine, make yourself close. Every centimeter of yours, in and on every inch of me. I was hot, sad. My ER cried. In bed, rough fingers me on you aside, asleep. No, I cannot lie longer. You know I am hard and your touch soft guides me. That is how to guide a hard thing I know. Point me not. God vomiting wish with me, you anguish too. How taboo to see, seem, seek, Sambeat. No mooring poles, no hot or sad. Yes, I feel. This is just after birth. I must go. Do not cry. Away my blood beats. Okay, I've got one more and then we can turn in for dinner. How about that? We made it through in the end.
Yeah.
So this is called Reverberate. And no introductions, but I was born in Bryn Mawr, and it's right out here. So it's in Bryn Mawr. It was once Welsh, and the place flowers every spring. Flowers new and anew every spring. I write in my childhood home and listen. Here and everywhere I was born, immaculate and immaculate again. In my unconscious, infinite childhood, my mother read aloud to Jack and I. Her voice echoes, listen, this is how I feel it. Gorgeous, come trace the deep and palpable here in Bryn Mawr. The gracestones greet the wind, humming. cheer the chatter of old friends. By 2006, the diegetic clacks of my mechanical keyboard said, listen, hear this story as well, while I imagined the wind making the unbound brown bones of my childhood home grown under a weight not both unheard and unknown. I warred and explored our endless internet. I sorted and told stories. I make myth. It sounds. And whenever I fear the vast unknown, I magic. The living wind and I blow and seed all over, pollinating, scattering, the dirty dirt and I. But now, in my childhood home, 2 decades shatter past, and mighty forms gather within, and I am made anew. Listen. Thanks for holding on, guys. Thank you. This was a pleasure.
I don't know how to, I'm unmuted. Oh, obviously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, audience. Thank you, readers. Surprise, Writers House, poetry, community, solidarity. Come back tomorrow for Bob Perlman's sign up, stream anytime you want, get on Penn Sound. I hope to see you all on campus soon, but if not, we've got YouTube, we've got Zoom. Thank you to Writers House for hosting and making so much possible for so many of us in so many faraway places and making us feel like we are together. So goodbye, audience. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry you guys had to observe my manic energy during that. It was really hard to like behave. I just was like,